Okay, so checking real quick. No Abby yet, right? No Nancy yet? No Larissa yet? No Sylvia yet? No Caitlin yet? No Isaiah yet? No Xander yet? And no Andrea V, right? Alrighty, happy Wednesday already to you. Remember, tomorrow is a normal 5, 6, 7 day, and then you have Friday and Monday off. So don't forget, this is on at least the homepage on my, I'm sure they'll send out a reminder, but at least the homepage for my Canvas classes. You can see there, right? We first day of the week had 5th through the 7th. Then we had coming up Monday off. Then we'll go normal Tuesday, Wednesday, and normal Thursday, Friday. All right. So everything that we have done this week in terms of assignments and work will not be due until Tuesday at 3:15. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of time, and you should have enough time in class to finish that you won't have anything for the weekend in terms of me. All right, so we just had, let's see who else just came in. So Caitlin, you're here now, right?
Yes.
Perfect. I just want to make sure I don't miss you. I saw that you guys came in late or later. And then Isaiah, you were the other one that just came in, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, I got you both. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss you. Parents never believe it that you showed up when you're marked absent. So, all right. So, if you've got a tab available, go ahead and get to Module 5. I'll review with you real quick the characteristics of a totalitarian state. We'll talk a little bit about how that is similar to what we'll see in China. I'll give you a general outline of what happens in China. Then you'll have the same type of assignment. There's about a 20-minute clip of Mao and how he comes to power and the things that he does to his enemies. And then a set of review questions with that as well. And then we will be done for the week. So if you've got a tab available, go ahead and get to section or week module 5. All right, so when we looked at characteristics of a totalitarian state, you're going to see this in China as well. But you're going to have basically a police state, highly suspicious of all activity, generally going to be a secret portion or sector of the police. They're going to monitor, right, in this time period, telephone lines. Even if you look at China now, China monitors all electronic activity. So anything over the internet, they block certain internet sites, they block certain Google sites. You have to Basically, if you're American business doing business in China today, you have to agree to all of these stipulations, which would never happen, right, in the United States. Censorship is part of Russia. It will also be part of China. Education and indoctrination is the same in Russia and China. China does not allow any official religion, just like the Soviet Union didn't. And then the same thing. Mao is going to have an industrial revolution, and it was called the Great Leap Forward. But basically, it's going to be the same sort of situation in China that we have in Russia. And so these characteristics of a totalitarian state, you will see throughout most of these communist countries. You were to watch this clip, and while you watch that, you were able to complete the review questions over that in terms of how Stalin was. But what we'll do now is take a look at China so you can see sort of the difference there. And let me reset so that make sure it looks right to you. Okay, so a couple of things, and this is on your canvas, so you really wouldn't have to write it down. But basically, one of the things, and we looked at China at the end of last semester, remember that we talked about those spheres of influence in the 1800s where we were looking for, and when I say we, industrialized countries, United States, Great Britain, Germany, we're looking for markets, not only for the new goods that we were producing, but also a source for raw materials. And China is a very large country. And even today, it's extremely large, right up there with the size of Canada. And so one of the things that the Chinese were very, I don't want to say superstitious, but were very much in the thought process that dynasties sort of ebb and flowed in China. And if a dynasty became too weak and was allowed to be sort of overtaken by foreigners or by rival dynasties, then it was time for it to go, right? It's sort of God's will in terms of what happens. So when you look at that, that's sort of how the Chinese thought of that. So many Chinese resented control from foreign nations. They saw it as a sign of weakness of the dynasty. There are some in China that wanted to modernize, become more industrialized, because they were not even as industrialized as the Russians. And there are a number of people that sort of push for this. So as they come out of the Qing dynasty, there's a group called the Kuomintang, and they're going to become the Nationalist Party. That Nationalist Party is going to be one that fights Mao and the Communist Party for control of China. And the Nationalist Party, right, not to spoil anything, is basically where the people of Taiwan came from. So as a republic, China set up a president. Sun Yat-sen wanted political and economic rights for all people in China. He wanted to end the foreign control of China, but he does not have the support of the military. So 6 weeks later, right, he turns over his presidency to Yuan Shikai, powerful general. He becomes a military dictator because he can control the military and as well as control the government then. When he dies in 1916, a civil war breaks out. So you can see this is right before the Russian Revolution, sort of mirroring the same time period. Generally, with all civil wars, the people are the ones that are going to be the ones that suffer. There's going to be famine. There's going to be brutal attacks. There's going to be people pointing out other people to the other side. And it was not a good situation in China. China's leaders hoped to win support of the Allies during World War I, so they declare war on Germany. When the war ended, though, they were not really involved in the Treaty of Versailles. So remember, we talked about the Treaty of Versailles also at the end of the first semester in terms of what allows these other countries basically to make Germany pay for all of it, right? And the sort of resentment that that causes later leading to World War II. But China doesn't get anything out of the Treaty of Versailles. The parts of China that have been controlled by Germany were then handed over to Japan. And this is going to start a real hatred of the Japanese people. So angry Chinese protests in what's called the May 4th movement. And one of the leaders of that protest is called Mao Zedong. And Mao is going to be the first communist leader of China by 1949. The movement, the Chinese nationalist protest against China's fate, was basically a communist group. And so you're going to see the Communist Party in the 20s look to Marxism, look to the Russian revolutions of 1917, and see, right, what is possible. They're disappointed with Western democracies. They're disappointed with the way that they were treated after World War I. And so you're going to see this movement between communists and those who want democracy. Now, obviously, the United States is going to support democracy and Sun Yat-sen in this civil war. The Russians are going to support the Communist Party and Mao in this civil war. The only problem is that World War II is going to happen. And so when World War II happens, basically, they stop the Civil War and fight for, right, the protection of China against the Japanese. Set this so you can see. All right. So this here is sort of a breakdown of what is going to happen. So you have the nationalist period in China, which is basically the end of all dynastic rule. So for centuries before 1912, China was ruled by a series of dynasties. And those dynasties would be more powerful, less powerful, depending on famine, depending on outside excursions, things like that. But that is basically the end of dynastic rule in China by 1912. And so what you have set up is the Republic of China. The Chinese nationalists, the ones who the Americans are going to support, revolted against the dynastic rule of the Manchu dynasty, basically because they failed to protect China's sovereignty. These spheres of influence by Germany, France, Britain, all of these things had upset the Chinese. So on October 11th, 1912, you're going to have nationalist forces overthrow the last emperor. They proclaim the Republic of China, and basically the 5-year-old emperor who had taken over for his father, who had died young, is forced to abdicate the throne. So you're going to have, after this takeover, right, a period of disunity. The dynasty has been overthrown, but now there's unrest and instability because you don't have anybody really in charge. The nationalists are led by an American educated man named Dr. Sun Yat-sen. He forms a new political party called the Kuomintang. He's going to become the first president of the Republic, though his control was incomplete because he cannot prevent civil war. He does not have full control of the army. And you have this opposition to the nationalists, not only Chinese warlords who are looking to support dynastic rule and get themselves put into power. You have Japanese imperialists who want the northern part of China for the resources, for goods. And then you had the group led by Mao, which are the Chinese communists. So there's a lot of things going on. Lastly, right before basically World War II, you have a man named Chiang Kai-shek who takes control of the nationalists. Sun Yat-sen had died in 1925. China then is taken over by Chiang. He's going to defeat the warlords. He unites China basically by 1928. And at this time, he makes Mao and the rest of the communists go on the run. And so what ends up happening is a 6,000-mile sort of cat and mouse game where the communists are going along the southern route, along the western portion of China, back up around the north, basically trying to keep away from the nationalists. Because if the nationalists trap them and capture them, it's over, right? China doesn't become communist, and the nationalists are going to win. They have the support of the Americans. But each time the nationalists seem to have surrounded the communists, they break away, follow a different path in the mountains, and basically keep hiding on the run. Now, they'll hide for a long period of time, but what happens is that World War II is going to happen. And when World War II happens, what you have is the fact that the Chinese, no matter how much, right, the nationalists who support democracy in a republic, something similar to that, hate the communists. And no matter how much the communists hate the idea of these rulers, right, even if they claim to be democratic, they both hate the Japanese way more. And so when World War II breaks out, especially when the Japanese attack the Americans in Pearl Harbor, especially when the Japanese attack China in the northeast portion of their country, both of them say, you know what, we'll finish this civil war, but we've got to go to defeat the Japanese first. The Japanese had done a number of basically brutal and vicious things to women under the control of various areas close to up to where Mongolia is at. And so the hatred for the Japanese is going to cause them to look the other way from each other and focus their, I would say, focus their anger, right, on the Japanese. You can Google if you want to see why they hate the Japanese so much, you can Google the rape of Nanking, Nanking, things they did to women, especially children, are just like unbelievably brutal. So that is why the Chinese hate the Japanese and are going to force them out. Right? Now, eventually what's going to happen, as I said, is when World War II is over, Mao and the communists are going to basically force the nationalists off the continent of Asia, and they flee to Taiwan. And so if I bring up a map here, let me show you what happens. But basically, right, and it just depends upon how you view this, right? So when you look at, this is, all right, this is mainland China right here, and you can see the size of it. What happens is that the communists, after World War II, are able to drive Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists to Taiwan. And they basically just force them on the island and keep them there, right? Don't let them off. And so that is sort of what you see and look at there. But basically this entire island is still the ancestors and the descendants of those nationalists. Now, Taiwan considers itself a independent country. Independent country. It is not run by communists. We provide military support. We provide military missiles, airplanes, aircraft carriers. The Chinese basically call it a rogue republic. So the Chinese say, look, this belongs to us. The Chinese, I think a couple of days before the inauguration, basically had flown into Taiwan airspace, had sent some destroyers into Taiwan's national waters just to see what the response would be. And so this has been going on for over 70 years, right? This has been going on for over 70 years, that you have all of the nationalists who have fled to this island. Taipei is the capital. The nationalists, the people that are here, consider themselves to be independent. They consider themselves to be Taiwanese. The Chinese basically consider it a rogue province, that it's part of China, and that's fine. They can think whatever they want, but this is our land and we'll take it whenever we want. So that's one of those things there, similar to what you have, right, between North Korea and South Korea, right? So North Korea and South Korea are divided right there at that parallel. North Korea still considers South Korea to be theirs. South Korea still considers North Korea to be theirs. And, you know, someday something will happen in terms of one way or the other. So that is sort of where we're at with that. But that's where you want to realize that Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists end up going. So this portrait of Mao here is going to look at, and I'll make sure that that's the right clip. That doesn't look right. Is going to look at Mao, and then there are questions regarding that video assignment that you'll do just like you did before, and you should be able to finish that with the remaining time. Let me make sure that it's got the right clip. So it's a series where it looks like it's Stalin, Mao, and a few others. So that's why it may have Stalin's picture, but it still should be Mao. I don't think so. All right, let me edit that and get the right one. Otherwise you'll be SOL. Yep, I didn't update it right. So, all right, sorry about that. I didn't mean to waste your time. Okay, so now if you click on this, this is the portrait of Mao. Anyway, so this is similar to what you have with Stalin. So to explain what happens between the communist and the nationalist, there is a part a few minutes in, probably about 8 minutes in, when they really start fighting, where the communists and even the nationalists start rounding people up, and they basically shoot them in the back of the head. So that stuff makes you queasy. You don't want to look at that. And then, as I said, while you watch that, there are review questions over Mao, similar to what you had with Stalin. All right. And so it's going to talk about Mao's rule, Mao's parents, all of this stuff is in basically the video. And so it follows right along. You can submit that. One of the things that I noticed when you are submitting something and you have, let me show you here. When you start submitting certain items, up at the top, there should be a number, and then there should be a circle right underneath. If it turns green, you got the answer right. If it turns red, okay, you got it wrong. You can submit the answers on formative as many times as you want until the assignment closes on the 26th. So if you see any answers, especially the true false ones, right? If you mark down true and you get a red dot, obviously the answer is false. So make sure that you make that adjustment so you get all the points that you deserve. But you should be able to finish that. The class technically ends at what, 3:10? It's 2:18. So you should be able to finish that right now. If you've already finished the portrait of Stalin, then you've got the 4-day weekend off, because we won't meet again until Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday. It's President's Day. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can stay on. I'll be happy to help. Otherwise, you can watch that short 20-minute clip, have the review question assignment open while you're watching it, just fill in the answers, and you will be done. Have a great week. We'll see you later.
Bye. Have a good one, Mr. Grock.
Thank you, Lily. We'll see you later.
Bye, Mr. Grock.
Take care of our boat.